This is our presentation for the New York State Social Studies Conference, and it is going to focus on writing about the world. Our presenters are Corinne Jackson, Alyssa Murphy, and Jessica Conley. So our goal for you today through this presentation is to show you a variety of strategies that build on collaborating between social studies and English writing skills. All three models that we will show you are about promoting critical thinking in a variety of ways. So our thoughts in creating this presentation were to show that you can practice social studies skills in a variety of ways that allow the students to build and grow while focusing on different aspects of art and literature in social studies, as well as showing them how their social studies skills can help build as far as research writing goes, or building that civic engagement or civic knowledge in both our social studies and English programs. All three models that we will show in this session are more geared towards honors level students, but definitely could be modified for general education populations. So what our hope is that you will take away from this are some research writing methods, ways to incorporate enduring issues into different modalities of writing, both fiction and non. We'll show you a variety of social studies and ELA projects that we have done together, and then contextualizing art and literature within their historical periods. So the first models that we're going to show are what we use with our 9H students in ways for connecting enduring issues through a variety of projects and writing modalities, as well as incorporating art and artifacts into our writing. So this is a project that we do with our honor students called America's Then and Now, which incorporates using websites such as the Metropolitan Museum of Art's gallery, as well as the British Museum, to find artifacts and find ways to connect those artifacts to enduring issues and to the modern areas of the world of Mexico, Peru, and Brazil. So, for example, here is the project's description. What the students are asked to do is to create a sutori where they are going to research and find different artifacts that match an enduring issue that they are given. So they are assigned an enduring issue, for example, the challenge of maintaining control. And then once they have their enduring issue, they have to connect that enduring issue using artifacts to the Maya, Aztec, and Inca. We allow them to use nonfiction sources from the library, the Museum of the World, which is a website provided by the British Museum, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, as well as the National Museum, which is the Smithsonian Museum for the American Indian. These allow them to see a variety of artifacts that they can use. We also make them read an article about the importance of artifacts in how historians can utilize them to contextualize history. So they then create information, or they find information about each of their artifacts and connect it to an enduring issue, and then connect it to the modern world. So a student example, these students created their sutori about the challenge of maintaining control. So what they did was they found an artifact, and then they, after researching the artifact, they would connect it to show how the Maya, this artifact showed how the Maya were in fact maintaining control over their civilization. And they did it for each one of the America civilizations we focused on. Their explanation as to how it connected to the enduring issue, how it connects back to the civilization, and then how it connects to the modern world today, and how modern American countries are dealing with the issue of the challenge of maintaining control. This allowed the students to showcase working with artifacts as well as the importance of the enduring issue. It allowed them some skill work in both of those areas. Another project that we do with our 9H students is the Asian Art Project. And the inspiration behind this project was actually the book A Single Shard by Linda Sue Park. And so what we do is we actually have the students start by reading a chapter of the book, A Single Shard, and using that as the inspiration behind what we ask them to do in our East Asia unit project. So what we ask them to do is to basically find a piece of art and then write a fictional story about the creation of that piece of art. However, while they're writing that fictional story, they must use historically accurate information. So they must contextualize the piece in the time period it existed. So if their piece of art is from the Tang Dynasty, then they have to research the environment of the area, the political, economic, and social situation of it. So it gives them the skill work that we're asking them to do in social studies and being able to practice some fictional writing for ELA. So a student example, this student wrote her project about the creation of this piece of art, which was created during the Tang Dynasty. And then in her story, her fictional story, she highlights her different contextualized pieces of information that were specific to the time period of the Tang Dynasty. So here are some different ways that we use writing in our 9H class. We'll now hand it over to Alyssa Murphy, where she will talk about how we utilize different writing skills in our accelerated social studies program.
I'm going to share with you a project called Changing the World. So Changing the World in a nutshell is an interdisciplinary year-long process where students are identifying, researching, and taking action to respond to issues in the world. It's important to understand a little bit of information about the cohort that I work with as we kind of get into what makes up the components of this project. These students are accelerated 8th graders taking 9th grade global and English 9 honors. So they have relatively high Lexile levels and they engage very well in school content, activities, things like that. They have the same English teacher. So the English teacher and I have the ability to align quite closely. And my goal in global has been to design a course that challenges these kids to think beyond just our course content, to look at how issues have pervaded human societies, and to understand the role that we play in addressing these issues. So this is where CTW has come into play. So CTW, like I said before, is a year-long process that's made up of multiple steps. As you can see on the screen, I've broken up this is what we give to the students to kind of overview the entire year for them. It's an interdisciplinary effort, so there's a lot of collaboration between myself and my English teacher colleague. Over the last 4 years, we've worked very closely to build this experience for our students. The students drive this process. They select their issue, they conduct their research, they design a discussion for her class in English, they create their capstone project for global, and ultimately they present a final project. So we've kind of designated certain parts that are specific to our own disciplines. So for example, the capstone project is something that they only complete with me in global, and I'll talk more about that. But we work together to support the students throughout the year because it's a long, intense process that is very much dependent on the students kind of like taking steps independently to move forward. So, our collaboration for Change the World, or CTW, began around the same time as the rollout of the new Global History and Geography Regents exam, and in particular, the Enduring Issues essay. What I realized was that we had this opportunity to create a whole new experience for our accelerated students that could have them look at enduring issues, but in a more meaningful way. So, what we typically do at the beginning of the school year is introduce enduring issues like we would in any other global course. We talk about the idea that humans are impacted by problems and topics, and these things force humans to respond, right? And some responses are more successful than others. And then we have the students look at the world around them, and we have them select an issue that they are passionate about. So we guide them through this process. They brainstorm potential topics, they do some initial research, they think about subtopics to kind of narrow the scope of their ideas. They complete a brainstorming page and they get some feedback from us so that they can kind of see how, some of them like to select like climate change as their issue. And that's just such a huge, huge concept that we help them kind of work through what parts of climate change are they most concerned about? What do they want to kind of zero in on? So we help them narrow the scope as they go through this initial brainstorming process. And basically, it continues until they have settled on an issue that they then focus on for the entire year. So as they begin the official research and writing process, the students are asked to analyze their issue, right? Why is it a problem? Who is impacted by it? And then we ask them to, similar to the Enduring Issues essay, look at how humans are impacted, right? And evaluate solutions, right? Like what can be done, what is being done or is not, what should be being done. And the students begin this process in September. So we introduce those enduring issues early on in the year. Then we move on to focusing on them picking their issue, and we live in what's the problem, what are the solutions for pretty much from about November, once they've settled on an issue, until about March when their papers are done. Usually we wrap up by mid to end of March with this, and it sets us up for something new, the capstone project that we've decided to start rolling out this year. So I'm really excited about the middle school capstone project with these students. This year we finally have the approval for the New York State Seal of Civic Readiness. So I was looking at what we asked the students to do in the Change the World process. And as I was looking at the essential elements for the capstone, we do so much that's already embedded into our work. We already have the kids identify issues. We already have them conduct research. We already have them analyze the issue and their research. So what we are doing this year is taking it one step further to help them kind of navigate through these next two pieces of the capstone in order to earn a credit for the New York State Seal of Civic Readiness. So the middle school capstone project is built around those essentials for the Seal of Civic Readiness, right? Civic knowledge, civic skills, and civic mindset. So what I really like is that this process, my hope is that this is going to be a very unique opportunity for these students taking Accelerated Global 9. It's going to build on what we're already doing. It's going to kind of reestablish some of these really important concepts like enduring issues that we talk about. So for the middle school capstone project, this is something that I'm going to support the students doing throughout the month of March. So we have not rolled this out as of yet, but the plan moving forward is to have the students be grouped based on similar topics. So I've surveyed them. We're organizing them into groups to help connect kids who have similar topics. Like for those students who took on poverty, we'll group them together. For those students who took on environmental challenges, we'll group them together. And then the next step kind of will flow through the essential elements. So the students are going to collectively analyze the research that they already have done with the Change the World research paper. They're going to pool their research and they're going to look to determine the important impact that their issue has either at the school level, the community level, the national level, or even in the world. So what I like about the middle school capstone project is that they have the opportunity to look at a very micro level. They can look in their own backyard at their school, or they can go and look at the world at large. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for them to take what they've already been doing and find like an avenue that works for them without having to do a whole lot of new research at this point in the process. Um, the next step is for the group to then look at solutions. Again, pool your research. You've already looked at what's going on in terms of how humans are trying to react to this issue in various parts of the world. So now the groups have to evaluate solutions and kind of rank the solutions. And then once they've looked at all the solutions, their job, and this is where the meat of their work is going to be taking place, their job is to develop a plan that they can then recommend. So what's important is that the students are going to be asked to identify stakeholders, right? Like who are the people who are going to be able to kind of like hit this solution, right? Who are going to be able to actually put their finger on this issue relatively directly, right? Like, is it a government employee? Is it a non-governmental agency? So their goal is to look at the solution that they've selected, pick out a group that they can directly kind of like connect to that solution, and develop a strategy for those stakeholders to then uh, roll out in theory. All right. And then the final piece is presenting. So this will take the shape of just a traditional slides presentation where the students will kind of like summarize the process. They will summarize their research analysis to express to their classmates and to myself, another teacher, and our academic administrator. And they will present out like, here's the research that we found. This is why this issue is so impactful. And they will present their strategy for change. And then ultimately, the year will wrap up with a year end reflection. The reflection is something that my colleague and I have had them do for the last few years. So, once again, it's one of those like very natural, kind of like naturally fitting pieces of this capstone project. So, ultimately, I think though these students are our accelerated cohort, I think there's a lot of potential in this process to kind of like take a step back and look at how we approach Global 9 in particular, because we have some room and some flexibility with our course, and what elements we zero in on, that I think we have a lot of power to, you know, open this up to uh, wider audiences. And that's my hope, is that after rolling this out this year with my accelerated students, that we can then have conversations about rolling it out with general middle school classes, and the regular level Global 9 classes.
Hi, my name's Jessica Connolly, and I'm going to share some information about a interdisciplinary course that we teach at Shenendehowa. It's called World Cultures, World Literature. It's an honors course. It's taught to n- accelerated ninth graders and 10th graders, and it's co taught with an English and a social studies teacher. This is a full year course. It covers the curriculum for 10th grade English and 10th grade global. The kids take the global regents at the end of the year. It's a great course. It's a true humanities course. And basically, the goal of the course is to have the kids analyze connections between the art, literature, and historic eras in which they were created. Really, what the students are being asked to do is evaluate the art and the literature as whether it's a reflection or a rejection of the time period in which it's created. And sometimes it's both. Um, some quick overview information. We start at the beginning of the year with a 6-week long introduction to art history because the kids have not had it. So we start basically with Greece and Rome, and we analyze art and select literature pieces all the way through the Renaissance. So, for example, when we're studying um, Greek art and architecture, the kids are looking at some mythology. When we look at the Middle Ages, the kids are looking at Geoffrey Chaucer, and we tie the art in with, um, art of um, the church and reliquaries and things of that nature. And then we also are studying, the power of the church and um, pilgrimage at the same time. Um, we really take a very interdisciplinary approach as much as we can throughout the year. We start really kind of separating the lit and the history um, at the time of the Enlightenment, and we go through the present day. Then what we do is we kind of sprinkle the art analysis throughout. So, for example, if you look at the literature that we look at when we're studying a modest proposal, we're also looking at the Enlightenment and the necessity of the use of satire in society at that time to critique systems. Um, when we look at A Tale of Two Cities, the kids are looking at the Industrial Revolution and the evolution of economic systems. Um, so you can see sometimes we diverge a little bit, but a lot of the time we try to really look at works within the context of the time period when it's created. Um, we have several different means by which we teach the art. So when we're looking at strictly art, we have 3 ways that we do this. At the end of that first 6 weeks, we have our art seminar. What it entails, kids are assigned an era or a style. So um, specifically, you might be assigned Northern Renaissance art. You have to pick a focus work from that style, and you need to make it fit a specific prompt. Um, the instructions for the art seminar are here. So basically, what the kids do is they participate in a panel discussion, and the job of the panel is to really kind of inform an audience who have to select a work of art or a general period of art from among those that we've studied to fulfill a certain purpose. Um, this year, the art periods that we did were here. So we had 6 or 7 kids presenting kind of at the same time. And it's less a presentation than it is a seminar discussion. So the students prepare, they have these questions that they take a look at about values or themes of the historical period that are reflected in the work. Um, Perhaps the work's medium is really important. One of the prompts has to do with the spirit of ingenuity, and so sometimes these mediums are really new and technologically advanced. And so we evaluate them based on how well they're able to take their focus work and details about their focus work to meet the prompt. Um, we use this rubric for the when we evaluate the kids, we're really evaluating them as they're having their conversation. And this is what our rubric looks like. Um, you can see there's a variety of things that we're looking at. We're looking at preparation. We ask the kids to hand in notes. Um, we look at whether they're listening to one another. Are they taking notes while they're listening? Are they asking questions? Are they keeping the conversation flowing? And also, obviously, how well are they using the evidence to support their ideas and to support the prompt? Another type of writing or another type of art analysis that we do are these art essays that we do twice a year. they cover a specific era. So, for example, the first art analysis essay that we do is based on 17th century. Kids look at different styles of Baroque art, they look at some Enlightenment style art, and basically, they're saying how do these styles reflect or reject the history of the time period. They also incorporate a piece of literature into their writing. And so we're asking them to look at art, lit, and history all wrapped up into one. Their rubric looks like this. So we've divided it into, how well do they address the task, um, and what kind of analysis are they offering? Are they really explaining how each work reflects comments on or, you know, and analyzes what's going on at the time period? Um, we look at the level of evidence that they provide for us. Um, a lot of the time, the kids are very good about providing detail because we allow them to come into the assessment with a graphic organizer, but they're not so great at maybe analyzing why that information supports the prompt. We also look at some organization and structure, and also language use and conventions. So you can see that this is really a blend of social studies and English writing styles. The last type of project that we do for art analysis are literal projects. Sometimes it could be a wee video, sometimes it could be a tutori or something of that nature, but it's usually asking the kids to do something multimedia with their art analysis. Our modern art project, kids are assigned an artist or a movement. They have to analyze one work as a focus work that's representative of their style or their artist. This particular project, we asked them to create a sutori. Um, the instructions are pretty straightforward. We ask them to focus on the art movement or the artist, the time period, what's going on at the time that's influencing the art that's being created. Where did it start? Did the movement move? Right? What's the historic and the social context? Maybe there's a psychological element. Um, Maybe there's something going on economically. Um, And then we look at visual characteristics of the movement, and then they really zero in on, okay, what's going on with this particular artist and what's going on with the particular focus work. This particular assignment asked the kids to create a sutori where they focus on one work. And we really, really encourage them to take the piece as a whole and zoom in and maybe look at specific elements of those pieces as a reflection or rejection of their time. These are the different time periods or the isms that kids are allowed to choose from. We give them a list of artists, and then we also provide them with a list of some good websites and other sources that they can go into. Um, They're evaluated again on a rubric. This one is fairly simple, right? Is it accurate? Are they thoroughly analyzing their topic? Um, is their analysis insightful, or is it kind of just a repetition of things that they've seen? Is it coherent? Is it well organized? And is it engaging? Um, We have a major project that's part of our course. It's called the Oral. It's a 20-minute presentation. Kids are assigned time periods and they can choose an individual or they can choose to read a novel about that time or that comes from that time period. This is in lieu of a research paper. And so it's a lot of research that the kids are required to do. Um, we ask them to basically present on how the novel or the individual is a reflection or a rejection or both of the history or the time period. And students, in addition to giving their oral presentation, they're required to create a digital information packet. And then they also have a question and answer session after the presentation. The oral is one of the most valuable things that we do throughout the year. Um, it gives the kids an outlet to be able to do um, a spoken presentation rather than writing. It's an amazing piece of public speaking. The kids prepare for it for a really long time. And it also gives some kids who maybe don't love to write a different outlet. Um, this is kind of how things are broken down. They have to present for 20 minutes. Obviously, if it's a little shorter, a little longer, um, we don't find too much fault. They have to pick a theme that ties they have to pick a theme that ties everything together, and their whole presentation really is based on that theme. So for example, if they have a piece of literature, they choose a theme and then they have to tie the plot summary, their lit elements, a little bit of the background for the author, maybe knowledge of their lit period, and then also knowledge of the historical period into that theme. So these are the content pieces that they're graded on. Kids are also graded based on their speaking techniques. Um, it's a very holistic rubric. My co-teacher and I use this space to make comments on individual presentations, give them pieces of constructive criticism, give them pieces of praise. And then they also have a section where they're evaluating on the question and answer period. We find that this is a time for the kids to really shine. If they've done the breadth and depth of research that they need to do, they really take off in the question and answer period. They're also evaluated on the quality of research. How many sources do they have? Are they good sources? Right? Have they used them effectively? And also, do they cite their works cited page properly? The final thing I wanted to talk about is our final project. The final project is modeled on a BBC podcast called The Way I See It. And what we ask the kids to do is to develop a multimedia presentation. As you can see, this doesn't play from here. They have to design a multimedia presentation where they analyze a piece of art and a piece of literature, and we want them to reflect on how the piece inspires, provokes, surprises, or thrills them. As someone living today, we felt like this was really a culmination of everything that the kids have been practicing to do throughout the year. So they picked two works. Hopefully, they come up with a really cool theme that links those works, and then they analyze those pieces based on the way that they see the art. Um, it is super fun. I think it's a really nice way of giving up the reins and letting the kids really take over and show the level of analysis that they're um, able to create. So basically, we give them this little organizer. We encourage them to listen to a couple different episodes of the podcast where they have famous people go into the MoMA and analyze a piece of art and say how they see it. They generally talk about the time period in which it was created, and then they set it into a more modern context. Um, these are the things that are really important. It's a 10-minute max presentation. We really want the kids to reflect their understanding of the content that they chose. So they have to talk about the historical context. Why was it created, right? What are some issues or circumstances it responded to? They have to explain why they chose those works for themselves, and also have a thorough description of the art and the lit, using quotes, breaking down the art, talking about the medium, talking about technique, maybe the size of the art. For the lit, we ask them to consider the lit period. We ask them to maybe consider some lit elements, the setting, and then they put it all together in a presentation. I wanted to really quickly show you the rubric. This is the rubric that we use. We've kind of condensed everything that we do throughout the year into this 4 square rubric. And basically, it's how well do you respond to the prompt? How well do you use evidence to prove your point? What's your analysis like? Is it surface or is it deep? Is it um, does it provide some original thinking? And then how well organized is your project? And we feel that this really reflects the skills that we're looking for the kids to have at the end of the year.